There's a moment right before everything collapses when the room still believes it's in control. I remember that moment, because I was the only one who knew it wasn't. The dashboard was clean at first. Bright, green, stable, confident, like it always is before something breaks. Then it shifted, not dramatically, just slightly. A flicker, green to yellow. No one reacted. Not yet. Someone laughed near the glass wall. A product designer was already talking about post-launch metrics like we were celebrating, not monitoring. Ethan stood at the front, relaxed, one hand in his pocket, the other pointing at the screen as he walked everyone through projected growth. Then the color changed again, yellow to orange. A voice cut through the room. Latency spike, not loud, but sharp enough to stop everything. Heads turned. A few engineers leaned forward. Someone pulled up logs. Someone else refreshed the dashboard like it would magically fix itself. I didn't move. Slack notifications started stacking. Fast. Too fast. 1 ping. Then 5. Then 10. Customer success dropped into the channel. Users can't log in. Checkout is failing. We're losing sessions. The room didn't panic. Not yet. This was still something they believed they could control. Ethan stepped closer to the screen. It's probably just a temporary spike. Calm. Assured. The kind of calm people trust without questioning. I watched the numbers. Not the people, because numbers don't lie. People do. Response time doubled, then tripled. Error rates crept up, slowly, quietly, just enough to be ignored. Someone said, "We've seen worse." No, you haven't. The door swung open. My manager walked in, took one look at the screen, then slammed his hand against the table. Who signed off on this system? Silence. Not confusion. Not chaos. Just silence. Because everyone in that room knew the answer. No one wanted to say it. Ethan didn't speak. He just stared at the dashboard like he could will it back to green. An engineer started typing faster. Another whispered about scaling. Someone suggested rollback. But no one actually moved. Because no one understood what was happening. I did. I was standing in the back, not near the screen, not near the conversation. No laptop, no urgency, just watching. The dashboard froze. No warning this time. 1 second, 2. Then everything dropped. Black. No graphs, no recovery, just a dead screen. The room went completely still. No typing, no talking, no pretending, just the low hum of the AC. My manager turned slowly. Anyone? No one answered, because there was nothing left to say. That's when I stepped forward. Not fast, not dramatic, just enough to be seen. For the first time that morning, someone noticed me. I could feel it, the shift, the attention, the expectation, not because they trusted me, because they had no one else. I didn't rush, didn't open a laptop, didn't check logs. I already knew. I stopped just short of the table, looked at the black screen, then at my manager, and I said, "The failure started 3 weeks ago." The room changed instantly. Not louder, not chaotic, heavier. Every head turned. Ethan blinked. One of the engineers frowned. "What do you mean?" I didn't answer him. I looked at my manager. He stared back, trying to decide if I knew something or if I was about to make things worse. I held his gaze, calm, because I had already lived this moment before. Different company. Same pattern. You warn people. You explain, you even prove it, and they still don't listen. Not until the consequences speak for you. And now they finally were. I took a breath, not out of fear, but because I knew what I said next would change everything. My name is Chen. I'm a product manager, not the kind people notice in meetings, not the kind people quote, but I'm always the one who stays when everyone else leaves. I write the final specs no one reads carefully. I fix the edge cases no one thinks about. I'm the person engineers message when something breaks at 1:30 inches the morning. And I always answer. The conference room was already loud before the meeting even started. Whiteboards filled with half-erased diagrams, markers rolling across the table, people talking over each other like the loudest idea automatically wins. I wasn't listening to them. I was looking at the system flow on the screen, tracing it step by step. That's when I saw it. A small gap, not obvious, not dramatic, but under real traffic, it wouldn't hold. I raised my hand. No one noticed. So I spoke anyway. If we route traffic like this, it might overload the dependency layer. No one responded. One guy kept typing. Two people were debating something else. Someone nodded at a completely different point. I waited. Then I stopped. Didn't repeat it. Didn't push. 5 minutes later, Ethan leaned forward. We should probably consider dependency load here. It might bottleneck. Same idea. Almost word for word. And suddenly, that's smart. Good catch. Yeah, we should look into that. I looked down at my laptop. Not surprised. Not even frustrated. Just familiar. Okay. Same pattern. Later that night, the office was almost empty. Just the cleaning crew and a few engineers still staring at screens. I posted a full analysis in Slack. Clear title, clean structure, risk scenarios, fix options. I reread it once, made sure it was easy to follow, then hit send. Seen by 4 people. No replies. 10 minutes later, notification. Ethan posted quick thoughts on system risks. A section of my analysis. Copied. Reworded just enough. Reactions flooded in. Someone replied, "This is exactly what we needed." I stared at the screen for a second. Didn't react. Didn't correct him. Just closed Slack. It's not that they don't see it. They just don't need it to come from me. The next morning, my manager called me in. Small office, glass wall, door half closed. He leaned back, looked at my performance review, then at me. "You're good." Pause. "But people don't see you." I nodded. "You need to be more visible." I almost asked visible. How louder, more aggressive, interrupt more, talk like Ethan, but I didn't. "I'll work on it." He nodded, like that was enough. But I already knew I wasn't going to change the way I worked. Because in my head, it was simple. If the work is good, eventually, people will notice. That's what I believed. A week later, everything changed. All hands meeting, the kind where everyone actually shows up on time. My manager stood at the front, slide deck ready, tone serious. "This is our biggest product this year." The room quieted. I sat up a little straighter. Not enough for anyone to notice, just enough for me. "This is it. I've been building toward this." He looked around the room. Let the silence stretch. Then, said Ethan, "We'll be leading this project." Light applause. A few smiles. Someone whispered, "Makes sense." I didn't react. Didn't look up. Didn't look around. Just stared at the slide. Of course, not the first time. But something felt different this time. I wasn't angry. I wasn't disappointed. Just clear. Last time, I fought for it. I explained. I pushed. And it didn't change anything. This time, I leaned back in my chair and said nothing. Not because I didn't care, but because I had finally understood something. You don't always lose because you're wrong. Sometimes, you lose because no one needs you to be right. And if that's the game, then maybe it's time to stop playing it the same way. It wasn't the first time this had happened. That was the part no one in that room understood. To them, this was just another launch gone wrong. To me, it was familiar. Too familiar. Because I had already lived through this once. And that time I did everything differently. 2 days before launch, my previous company, late afternoon, most people had already mentally checked out. Talking about weekend plans, closing tickets just to clear the board. I was still at my desk, scrolling through logs, not because I had to, because something didn't feel right. At first, everything looked normal. Requests coming in, responses going out, nothing alarming. Then I saw it. A pattern, small, easy to miss, a delay in one service, then another, then a chain reaction. I stopped scrolling, went back, ran it again. Same result. This doesn't look right. I called over one of the engineers. Can you check this path? He walked over slowly, glanced at the screen, didn't sit down. Looks fine. I didn't argue. I just ran the test again. This time, I pushed it harder. Simulated load. The system froze. For a split second, everything stopped responding. Then it came back. I leaned back in my chair. No, this is bad. The next morning, we had the final launch meeting. Everyone was there. Leadership, engineering, product. The room felt confident. Too confident. We're launching tomorrow, my manager said. I didn't wait. We shouldn't. The room went quiet. Not shocked. Not dramatic. Just uncomfortable. There's a failure scenario, I said. Under load. The dependency chain breaks. We don't have time to dig into that. He replied. If traffic spikes, we'll monitor it. I felt something tighten in my chest. This isn't a monitoring issue. It's structural. He didn't like that. I could see it. It will break in production. Silence. No one backed me up. No one asked questions. They just looked down, at their laptops, at their notes, anywhere but at me. My manager smiled. Not a real smile. Noted. And moved on. After the meeting, he caught up with me in the hallway. You embarrassed me in there. I was trying to prevent. No. He cut in. You were trying to be right. I stopped walking. That's not how this works. He didn't wait for a response. Just walked away. And I stood there, trying to understand what I did wrong. Because I wasn't wrong. That was the problem. A week later, I wasn't in the meetings anymore. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a calendar glitch. Then the Slack channels disappeared. Then the updates stopped coming. Then the email arrived. You've been reassigned. No explanation. No conversation. Just removed. A few days later, another email from HR. You are not a cultural fit. I read it once, then again, like maybe the words would change. They didn't. I sat there, alone. No anger, no tears, just one thought. I was right, and it didn't matter. That was the moment something changed. Not suddenly, Not dramatically, quietly, like something turning off. Truth doesn't matter. If you don't have power, if people don't want to hear you, they won't. Not because they don't understand, because they don't need to. And if that's the case, then forcing them to listen is just noise. So I stopped pushing, stopped arguing, stopped trying to convince people who had already decided not to hear me. Because there's something stronger than being right. Letting consequences speak for you. That's what I learned. And that's what I carried with me. Into this company. Into that room. Into that launch. Because this time I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to prove anything. I wasn't going to fight for attention. I was going to wait. And let the system tell the truth for me. The project officially moved to Ethan's team the next morning. No transition plan. No deep handoff. Just a meeting invite titled Project Phoenix Kickoff. I was still on the invite list. Not because I mattered. Because no one had removed me yet. The room felt different this time. More energy. More confidence. More performance. Ethan stood at the front again. Already in control, already speaking like the outcome was guaranteed. This is going to be our flagship product, he said. We move fast. We don't overthink. We execute. A few people nodded. One of the engineers smiled. I sat near the end of the table, not hidden, but not seen. He clicked through slides quickly. Architecture, diagrams, timelines, milestones. Too fast. Not enough detail. I could already see where things didn't connect. Then he stopped, looked around. Any concerns? The room stayed quiet. I could feel it. That same moment again. The one where you either speak or stay invisible. I spoke. Dependency risk. Short. Clear. Enough for someone who understood to ask more. Ethan looked at me, just for a second, then smiled. We'll optimize that later. And moved on. No follow-up. No question. No discussion. Just dismissed. I didn't interrupt again, because I didn't need to. I already knew what was going to happen. Back at my desk, I opened a new document. No emotion, no frustration, just structure. I wrote everything down. Clear, precise. The failure point, the load scenario, the exact chain reaction, what would break, when it would break, and why. Then I turned it into an email. Subject line, potential failure, scenario, dependency, chain risk. I sent it to Ethan, the tech lead, my manager. I didn't add urgency words, didn't highlight anything in red, didn't push, just facts. I leaned back in my chair, looked at the sent timestamp, and waited. 10 minutes. No response. 30 minutes. Nothing. An hour. Still quiet. Slack was active. People were talking, sharing updates, joking about deadlines. My email sat there, unread or ignored. The next meeting came. Same room, same people. Ethan presented progress, confident as always. He talked about performance improvements, scaling strategy, launch readiness. He didn't mention the dependency issue, not once. I watched the slides. The flaw was still there, untouched. After the meeting, one of the engineers messaged me privately. "You're right about that dependency thing." I stared at the message, then replied, "Are you going to fix it?" Pause. Typing. Stopped. Typing again. No, not my call. That was it. That was the moment the decision became real. Not theirs. Mine. Because now I knew something clearly. They had seen it. They understood it. And they still chose to ignore it. I opened my email again. Read through it. Everything was there. Clear. Documented. Time-stamped. I could follow up. Push harder. Bring it up in the next meeting. Escalate. That's what I used to do. That's what cost me everything before. I closed the email and did nothing. From that point on, I stopped offering extra input. I did what was assigned. Nothing more, nothing less. In meetings, I listened. I took notes. When they made decisions, I didn't challenge them. When they overlooked risks, I didn't repeat myself. Not because I didn't care, because I understood something they didn't. You can't force people to see what they've already decided to ignore. And if they're going to own the success, they have to own the failure too. Days passed. Then weeks. The project moved forward. Fast. Too fast. And every step they took was exactly where I expected them to go. I didn't stop them. I didn't slow them down. I didn't say another word. Because I wasn't trying to prevent what was coming anymore. I was waiting for it. The first demo went perfectly. That was the problem. Everything worked. Smooth dashboards, fast responses, clean UI, no visible cracks because none of it was real. Fake data, controlled environment, no pressure, no stress, no truth. People clapped when it finished, not loudly, but enough. Enough to convince themselves. This is solid. Ethan smiled like he already knew it would be. Great work. Team. I didn't clap. I didn't need to. I already knew what happens when systems only work in perfect conditions. They don't survive reality. The next few weeks moved fast. Faster than any project I'd seen in a while. Too fast for something this complex. Ethan started getting attention. More meetings. More visibility. More people quoting him. At the next all hands, his name came up. Ethan's team is moving incredibly fast. Applause. On Slack. People started tagging him, looping Ethan in. He's leading Phoenix. Ethan. Thoughts Ethan already covered this. He didn't correct them. Why would he? I watched it happen, quietly, from the outside. Meanwhile, I started disappearing. Not physically. Functionally. Meetings I used to be in gone. Calendar invites stopped coming. Repo access limited. Tasks assigned to me smaller, simpler, almost irrelevant. At one point, I realized I hadn't spoken in a meeting for 3 days. Not because I wasn't there, because no one asked. One afternoon, I ran into Daniel from engineering in the hallway. He hesitated before speaking, like he wasn't sure if he should. You should have fought harder for that project. I looked at him. No, I said. They needed it. He frowned. Didn't understand. Most people don't. A few days later, I saw the first real sign. Not in a meeting. Not in a report. In the logs, a slight delay. Barely noticeable. A request taking longer than it should. Then another. Then a dependency call stacking. I leaned closer to the screen. There it was. Not failure. Not yet. Just pressure. The kind that builds quietly until it doesn't. I didn't report it. Didn't flag it. Didn't send another email. Because I had already done that. And they had already made their choice. A few days later, my original email resurfaced. Forwarded in a thread. For a second, I thought, maybe now they see it. Then I opened the reply. Not a priority right now. That was it. That was the moment everything locked into place. No more doubt, no more hesitation, just certainty. The announcement came at the next all hands. Big screen, full room, everyone watching. This product will be our global launch. A pause, and Ethan will be stepping into a senior leadership role. Applause, louder this time. People turned toward him, smiling, congratulating. His team clapped the hardest. I sat there, still. No one looked at me. No one mentioned my name, not even once. Then my manager spoke again, and we expect everyone to step up. Take more initiative. His eyes landed on me. Just for a second, I nodded. Of course, that should have hurt. It used to. Being ignored, being overlooked, being erased from your own work. But this time, it didn't. Because something had shifted. I wasn't hoping anymore. I wasn't waiting to be recognized. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I already knew how this ended. And for the first time, that gave me something I never had before. Control. Because while they were celebrating, they had already committed to something irreversible. A launch timeline. A global rollout. A system that couldn't hold under real load. They weren't just moving forward. They were locking themselves in. And no one in that room realized it. Except me. I leaned back in my chair, watched the applause fade, watched people move on, watched the momentum build. And for the first time, I didn't feel left behind. I felt ahead, because I wasn't guessing anymore. I was watching it happen, exactly the way I knew it would, step by step, right up to the moment everything breaks. Launch day. The room had been loud earlier. Now it wasn't. Not after the crash. Not after the screen went black. Not after the last system log stopped updating. Everything had slowed down. Even the people. Ethan was still standing near the screen. But the confidence was gone. You could see it in the way he shifted his weight. In the way he kept looking at other people, waiting for someone else to explain it. The engineers were talking now. Fast. Overlapping. Trying to piece together what had just happened. Database latency spiked. No. It's upstream. Wait. The dependency call. That doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to them. Because they were seeing it for the first time. I wasn't. My manager stepped forward. Why is the system down? No one answered directly. Just fragments. Guesses. Half answers. Ethan finally spoke. We didn't see this coming. That was the moment. Not the crash. Not the silence. That sentence. I looked at him, then at the screen, then back at my manager, and I said it. You did. The room went quiet again. Different this time. Sharper. Ethan turned. What I didn't raise my voice. Didn't rush. I documented this failure scenario 3 weeks ago. No one interrupted. Because now they were listening. I walked to the table, opened my laptop, connected it to the screen, pulled up the email. Subject line clear. Timestamp visible. Recipients listed. I didn't need to explain it. The words were already there. Dependency overload. Chain failure. Traffic spike. System collapse. Exactly what had just happened. My manager stepped closer. Reading, not speaking. Someone behind me whispered, "That's exactly what we're seeing." Ethan didn't say anything, because there was nothing left to say. No argument, no interpretation, just facts and timing. I scrolled, showed the analysis, the breakdown, the predicted outcome. Everything lined up perfectly. Silence filled the room again. But this time it wasn't confusion. It was realization. I closed the laptop halfway, looked up. I sent this before development finalized the architecture. No accusation, no emotion, just truth. My manager exhaled slowly, still staring at the screen. Why wasn't this addressed? No one answered. Because everyone knew. It wasn't missed. It was ignored. For a moment, I could have said more. I could have explained everything, made it clear exactly who made the decision. But I didn't, because this wasn't about proving I was right. That part was already done. Now it was about something else. Solving it. I turned back to the screen. We can still recover. That got their attention. The room shifted again, from blame to focus. What do we need? One engineer asked. I pointed at the architecture diagram. We isolate the failing dependency, route traffic away from it. Someone nodded. We can spin up a fallback service. Do it, my manager said. I continued. Reduce load temporarily. Disable non-critical features. Prioritize core flow. Hands moved. Keyboards clicked. This time, people weren't guessing. They were following. Minutes passed. Measured. The system didn't come back immediately, but the chaos stopped. Then one graph flickered. A line appeared. Then another. We're getting responses. Errors dropping. Ethan stepped back. Didn't speak. Didn't lead. For the first time, he wasn't the center of the room. I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. The system stabilized slowly. Not perfect. Not clean. But alive. Enough. An hour later, the room felt different again. Quieter. Heavier. Not because of the crash. Because of what it revealed. My manager looked at me. Different this time. Not evaluating. Listening. What do we do next? I thought about it. The meetings. The silence. The email. The decision to stop speaking. Then I answered. We fix the system. Pause. And we fix how we decide what matters. No one argued, because now they understood the cost of ignoring it. I stepped back, closed my laptop, not as someone proving a point, as someone who already had. For the first time since the project started, I wasn't invisible anymore. The system didn't fully recover that day. Not completely, not clean, but it was stable enough. Enough to stop the bleeding, enough to keep clients from walking away, enough to buy time. The war room slowly emptied. Not all at once. People left in small groups. Quiet. No celebration. No debrief jokes. No energy. Just silence. Ethan was one of the last to leave. He didn't say anything to me. Didn't look at me either. That was new. Before, he would have explained, defended, reframed what happened. Now there was nothing to reframe. The facts were already on the screen. The next few days felt different. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just shifted. Meetings came back. My name showed up on calendar invites again. People paused when I spoke. Not out of politeness, out of attention. The investigation started quietly. Internal review. No big announcements, but everyone knew. Logs were pulled. Decisions traced. Emails reviewed, including mine, especially mine. No one said it directly, but the conclusion was obvious. The failure wasn't random. It wasn't unpredictable. It wasn't unavoidable. It was a choice, a series of small decisions, each one easier to ignore than to address, until they weren't. Ethan stepped down from leading the project, not immediately, not publicly, but gradually, less presence, fewer meetings. Then none. His team changed too. Not all at once, but piece by piece. People reassigned. Responsibilities shifted. The spotlight moved. And for the first time, it didn't move randomly. It moved with intention. I didn't celebrate. Didn't feel like a victory. Because it wasn't. It was just the result of something that had already been set in motion. A week later, we had another meeting. Same room, same screen, but it didn't feel the same. My manager stood at the front, looked around, then said, "Before we move forward, I want to understand the risks." A pause. Then he looked at me. "What do you think?" The room didn't turn this time. They were already watching. I spoke. Not louder, not differently, just normally. And this time, no one interrupted. No one dismissed it. No one repeated it like it was their own. They just listened. That was the difference. Later that day, a new hire stopped by my desk. Young, curious, still learning how things worked. "I heard about what happened," he said. I nodded. He hesitated, then asked, "Why didn't you stop it earlier?" I looked at him for a moment. Thought about saying, "I tried," but that wasn't the full truth. They wouldn't have listened. He frowned. "Then why not keep pushing?" I leaned back in my chair. "Because I used to, and I knew how that ended. Because sometimes," I said, "people don't understand the risk until they feel it." He didn't respond right away, just stood there, thinking. I turned back to my screen. The system dashboard was open again. Green, stable. But this time, I didn't trust it blindly, and neither did anyone else. That was the real change. Not the promotion, not the recognition, the awareness. Because once you've seen something fail, you don't ignore the warning signs anymore. And once people learn to listen, you don't have to fight to be heard. I looked at the screen one more time. Same dashboard, same colors, but it meant something different now. Before, green meant everything was fine. Now, green meant we were paying attention, and that was enough. The system stayed stable after that. Not perfect, but predictable. And in our world, predictable matters more than perfect. A few weeks passed. Then a month. Then 2. Things didn't go back to normal, because normal was the problem. Instead, things became quieter. Decisions slowed down. Meetings changed. People asked more questions. Not to challenge, to understand. The dashboard was still there. Same screen, same layout, same colors. Green, yellow, red. But no one looked at it the same way anymore. Before, green meant success. Now, green meant we've checked everything twice. One afternoon, I walked into a meeting early. No one else was there yet. The screen was already on. Dashboard glowing. Green across the board. A few months ago, that would have felt reassuring. Now, it felt like a question. What are we not seeing? I sat down, opened my laptop, pulled up logs. Not because anything was wrong, because that's the job. A few minutes later, my manager walked in, stopped when he saw me. Not surprised, just acknowledging. He looked at the screen, then at me. Anything we should be worried about? That question didn't exist before. Not like that. I shook my head. Not yet. He nodded. Didn't rush. Didn't assume. Just sat down. That was new. Ethan's name came up once. In passing. Someone mentioned a previous decision, then paused, corrected themselves, and we should probably review that more carefully this time. No one laughed, no one dismissed it. Lessons don't always show up as speeches. Sometimes they show up as hesitation, as a second look, as silence where confidence used to be. I didn't become louder. I didn't change how I spoke. I didn't start interrupting people. I didn't fight for space. I didn't need to anymore, because something else had changed. The room, not me. One evening, long after most people had left, I walked past the conference room, lights still on. Inside, two engineers were talking quietly. "Are we sure this holds under load? I think so." But, what? Pause. Then one of them said, "Let's check again." That was it. That was the difference. Not confidence, caution, not speed, awareness. And that was stronger. I kept walking, didn't step in, didn't say anything. I didn't need to, because for the first time, the system wasn't the only thing learning from failure. The people were too. The next morning, I opened the dashboard again. Green, steady, quiet. And this time, I allowed myself a small pause. Not relief, not pride, just recognition. The same screen, the same signals, but a different meaning. Because now, green didn't mean everything was fine. It meant we were paying attention, and that was enough. Thank you for staying with this story until the very end. In a world full of noise, distractions, and reasons to leave early, you chose to listen. And that, by itself, already matters. Some stories don't end with victory. There's no dramatic breakthrough, no clear moment where everything is finally proven right. There's only a shift, quiet, slow, but deep enough that nothing goes back to the way it was. If you look back at this journey, it's not really a story about being recognized. It's a story about someone who learned how to keep doing the right thing without needing to be seen. We often believe that our value should be visible right away, that if we're good enough, right enough, persistent enough, eventually people will notice. But life doesn't always work that way. There are moments when you speak and no one listens, when you're right and it changes nothing, when you try and still get overlooked. And the hardest part is not being wrong. It's being right and realizing no one needs you to be. Maya tried, she explained. She pushed to be heard, and the cost of that was being pushed out of the very place she was trying to protect, until she understood something. That truth doesn't always need to be forced into the room, and you don't always have to be the one convincing others. Sometimes, truth needs time, and consequences will speak for you. That's not giving up, and it's not indifference. It's a different kind of understanding, the kind that knows some lessons can only be learned by living through them. And when that happens, you don't need to get louder. You don't need to reshape yourself to fit into a room that refuses to hear you. You just need to remain yourself and wait for the right moment. Maybe you're in a place like that right now. You see what others don't. You understand what no one is ready to accept. You've spoken and no one listened. If that's true, this story isn't here to tell you to stay silent. It's here to remind you you're not wrong just because others aren't ready to hear you. Some paths aren't built through arguments. They're built through consistency. Some changes don't come from being louder. They come from experience. And there are moments when you'll realize that your true value was never defined by whether others noticed you. but by the fact that you kept doing what was right, even when no one was looking. And when that moment comes, things begin to change. Not you, but the room around you, just like the dashboard in the story. Same screen, same colors, same signals, but a completely different meaning. Maybe life is like that too. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs us to be aware enough to see what's really there. If today you feel unseen, unheard, standing somewhere no one seems to notice, remember this: some things don't need immediate recognition to still have meaning. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is not to speak louder, but to continue quietly, steadily, without losing yourself. Because one day, when it truly matters, people will start listening, not because you changed, but because they finally did. And when that moment comes, you won't need to prove anything anymore. You'll just need to be there. Thank you for being here, all the way to the end. I hope that somewhere along your own journey, you find the same quiet strength Maya found. And maybe what matters most isn't when the world finally sees you, but when you look at yourself and realize you never stopped seeing who you truly are.